He was the most famous child in the world, the boy who turned Christmas into magic and earned millions before he was a teenager. But behind the laughter of Home Alone was a dark reality, controlling parents, courtroom battles, scandals, and a shocking fall from grace. How did Hollywood's golden child, adored by millions, end up vanishing from the spotlight? This is the untold story of Macaulay Culkin's rise, downfall, and redemption, the rise of a golden child. When we talk about the most iconic child stars in Hollywood history, few names shine brighter than Macaulay Culkin, but his story didn't begin in luxury or privilege. Born on August 26, 1980 in New York City, Macaulay wasn't raised in the glamorous lifestyle you might expect. He was the third of 7 children, living with his parents in a small apartment on the Upper East Side. Money was tight, sometimes painfully so. His father, Kit Culkin, had once dreamed of being a successful actor, but never made it past minor roles, while his mother, Patricia, worked low-paying jobs just to keep food on the table. For the Culkin family, life was a struggle, and fame was never part of the plan, or so it seemed. Macaulay's introduction to the world of acting came very early. At just 4 years old, he began performing in local theater productions. Unlike many child actors who are discovered by chance, Culkin was guided by his father, who saw in him an opportunity to achieve the success that had always eluded him. Kit wasn't just a parent, he was an ambitious stage father who believed one of his children could be Hollywood's golden ticket. Soon enough, young Macaulay found himself auditioning for commercials, TV shows, and even small film roles. He had a spark that stood out, an innocence mixed with sharp comedic timing, something that very few children could naturally deliver. His breakthrough came in 1989 with Uncle Buck, a comedy directed by John Hughes. Though he wasn't the star of the film, Macaulay's performance as Miles Russell, the quick-witted nephew, stole the show. Audiences loved him, and Hughes took notice. He saw something unique in the boy's charisma, a kind of charm that didn't feel forced. That single role would change the course of Macaulay's life forever, because it inspired Hughes to create the character that would make him a global phenomenon. In 1990, Home Alone hit theaters, and with it, Macaulay Culkin became a household name. The film told the story of Kevin McAllister, a boy accidentally left behind by his family during Christmas, forced to defend his home against 2 bumbling burglars. On paper, it was a fun holiday comedy. On screen, it was magic. And that magic worked because of Macaulay. His mischievous grin, comedic timing, and unforgettable scream made audiences fall in love with him instantly. Home Alone grossed nearly $500 million worldwide, becoming the highest-grossing live-action comedy at the time. For an 11-year-old boy, that level of fame was unimaginable. Overnight, Macaulay went from being a child actor to the most famous kid in the world. Studios rushed to sign him, directors fought to cast him, and the media couldn't get enough. In just a few years, he starred in My Girl, 1991, Home Alone 2, Lost in New York, 1992, The Good Son, 1993, The Nutcracker, 1993, Richie Rich, 1994, and several other films. His name guaranteed box office success, and his paychecks reflected it, up to $8 million per movie, making him the highest-paid child actor in history. But while the world saw him as Hollywood's golden child, behind the scenes, life wasn't nearly as magical. Kit Culkin controlled every aspect of his son's career and personal life, negotiating contracts with an iron fist and treating Macaulay less like a son and more like an investment. The child who once lit up the screen with genuine innocence was under immense pressure, expected to deliver perfection again and again. He wasn't just acting, he was carrying the financial hopes of his entire family. Still, in the early 90s, Macaulay Culkin stood as a symbol of joy and youth. He was the face of Christmas, the kid who represented mischief, independence, and charm. Every child wanted to be Kevin McAllister, and every parent wanted to laugh alongside him. The boy who grew up in poverty was now one of the most recognized faces on the planet. But as bright as his star shined, no one could have imagined how quickly that light would begin to fade. Family feuds and Hollywood pressure. By the early 1990s, Macaulay Culkin was living every child's dream, or at least that's what the world thought. He was starring in blockbuster after blockbuster, earning millions and adored by audiences everywhere. But while the cameras captured his smiling face, behind the scenes a storm was brewing that would soon tear his world apart. At the center of it all was his father, Kit Culkin. To Hollywood insiders, Kit wasn't just known as Macaulay's dad. He was infamous for being controlling, demanding, and nearly impossible to work with. He handled all of Macaulay's negotiations personally, often clashing with studios over money, contracts, and creative decisions. On the outside, it looked like a father fiercely protecting his son, but many in the industry saw it differently. Kit was treating Macaulay less like a child and more like a cash machine. And then there was the personal side. The Culkin household was far from stable. Kit and Patricia, Macaulay's mother, were never married, and their relationship was filled with tension, arguments, and financial strain. As Macaulay's fame and fortune grew, so did the cracks in his family. Money, instead of bringing stability, only deepened the conflicts. Kit believed he was entitled to control every cent of Macaulay's income, while Patricia worried about their son's well-being. By 1994, the tension exploded. Kit and Patricia separated, and what followed was one of the most publicized custody battles in Hollywood history. But this wasn't just a fight over who got the kids on weekends. It was a battle over Macaulay's estimated $17 million fortune. Imagine being barely a teenager and watching your parents wage war over your money, each one desperate to gain control of your career and bank account. For Macaulay, this wasn't just stressful, it was devastating. While other kids his age were worrying about homework or making friends, Macaulay was sitting in courtrooms, caught in the middle of adult battles he never asked for. He wasn't just Hollywood's biggest child star, he was the prize in a tug-of-war that had nothing to do with love and everything to do with power. And it broke him. On top of the family chaos, the relentless pressure from Hollywood was crushing. Between 1990 and 1994, Culkin starred in more than a dozen films, sometimes shooting one project immediately after finishing another. There was no time for rest, no time for a childhood, and certainly no chance to live a normal life. He was making millions, but at what cost? By the age of 14, Macaulay Culkin had had enough. Burned out, emotionally exhausted, and tired of being treated like a commodity, he made a shocking decision. He walked away. No one fired him, no scandal forced him out, he simply quit. To the public, it seemed unthinkable. How could Hollywood's golden child, the highest-paid kid in movie history, just stop? But for Macaulay, the choice was survival. What many didn't realize was that leaving Hollywood at such a young age is risky. Fame is fragile, and once you step away, the industry quickly replaces you. One moment, you're the star of Christmas classics, and the next, you're a forgotten name in the endless cycle of new talent. For Macaulay, stepping out of the spotlight wasn't just a career pause, it was the beginning of a long, painful disappearance from Hollywood's radar. By the mid-1990s, Macaulay Culkin had gone from being the most powerful child actor in the world to a teenager trying to figure out who he was without cameras flashing in his face. But with his family broken apart, his childhood stolen, and his fame slipping away, the next chapter of his life wouldn't be about glory, it would be about survival. Scandals, struggles, and a shattered image. When Macaulay Culkin walked away from Hollywood at just 14, the world assumed he'd eventually return. After all, how could the most famous child star of the 1990s simply disappear forever? But his retreat from the spotlight only fueled curiosity. Paparazzi followed him relentlessly, tabloids spun wild stories, and slowly, the image of Hollywood's golden child began to crumble. By the late 1990s, Macaulay was no longer the adorable boy from Home Alone. He was a teenager caught between fame and anonymity, struggling to live a life that was never truly his own. Out of the public eye, he tried to attend private school and live like a normal kid, but it was impossible. His face was too famous, his past too iconic. No matter where he went, he couldn't escape being Kevin McAllister. The pressure to live up to his childhood success haunted him. Then came the rumors. Whispers of drug use, depression, and isolation followed him into adulthood. Paparazzi photographs often painted him as frail and unhealthy, his once bright smile replaced by a vacant stare. For many, it was shocking. This was the same boy who symbolized holiday joy and innocence, now reduced to a tabloid headline. In 2000, Culkin briefly re-emerged in the spotlight when he married actress Rachel Miner at just 17 years old. The marriage, however, didn't last, ending in divorce 2 years later. Instead of being seen as a fresh start, it became more fuel for the tabloids, who were eager to portray him as unstable and reckless. Then, in 2004, everything came crashing down. Macaulay Culkin was arrested in Oklahoma City for possession of marijuana and controlled substances. The mugshots spread like wildfire. The boy who once symbolized Christmas magic was now splashed across newspapers as another fallen child star. It was the ultimate "where are they now" story, and the media devoured it. Overnight, Culkin became a cautionary tale of how Hollywood destroys its brightest young talents. Adding to the controversy was his long-standing friendship with Michael Jackson. Culkin had been close to the pop star since childhood, spending time at Neverland Ranch and defending Jackson during his infamous trials. To Culkin, Jackson was a friend who understood the pain of lost childhood. But to the media, this association was suspicious and scandalous. Headlines linked him to the controversy, whether fairly or not, and his image suffered further damage. While Hollywood moved on, Macaulay struggled to find his place. He attempted to return to acting with small roles in independent films like Party Monster 2003 and Saved 2004. But audiences weren't ready to see him as an adult. For many, he was forever frozen in time as Kevin McAllister. The transition from child star to adult actor is difficult for anyone, but for Culkin, it was almost impossible. The industry didn't see him as a leading man. It saw him as a nostalgic relic of the past. The tabloids, meanwhile, continued to hound him. Stories about his supposed drug addiction, loneliness, and declining health filled magazines. Even when he tried to live quietly, photos of him looking thin or tired sparked headlines that he was on the brink of destruction. Whether true or exaggerated, the narrative stuck. Macaulay Culkin, the boy who once had it all, had lost everything. By the mid-2000s, Macaulay had become a symbol of Hollywood's dark side. He wasn't celebrated for his talent anymore. He was pitied, mocked, and used as a reminder of how quickly fame can destroy innocence. For a generation who grew up watching him on screen, it was heartbreaking to see their childhood hero reduced to a punchline. But what the world didn't know was that behind the broken image, Culkin was quietly finding a way to rebuild his life on his own terms. His comeback wouldn't be loud, and it wouldn't be immediate, but it was coming. A quiet comeback and redemption. By the mid-2000s, Macaulay Culkin's career seemed like a tragic Hollywood cliché. Once the most famous child star in the world, he had become a tabloid target, a face people pitied rather than celebrated. Many assumed he was finished, another fallen star who would fade into obscurity. But Macaulay had other plans. Instead of chasing the spotlight, he chose something almost unheard of in Hollywood. He stepped away on his own terms to rebuild his life quietly. Unlike so many child actors who spiral out of control, Culkin understood that fame wasn't the answer to his problems, it was the cause of them. He distanced himself from Hollywood, avoiding blockbuster roles and paparazzi-heavy events. Instead, he explored smaller, more personal projects. In 2003, he starred in Party Monster, playing Michael Alec, a notorious club promoter turned criminal. It was a bold departure from his childhood roles, and while the film didn't achieve mainstream success, it reminded audiences that Culkin had real acting talent. He followed with Saved, 2004, an indie dark comedy where he delivered another strong performance. These films didn't revive his stardom, but they gave him something more valuable: artistic freedom. As years passed, Culkin leaned further into his independence. He embraced New York's underground art scene, made appearances in experimental theater, and even launched a parody rock band called the Pizza Underground, where he and his bandmates sang pizza-themed versions of Velvet Underground songs. To many, it seemed bizarre, but to Culkin, it was liberating. After decades of being controlled by Hollywood and his family, he was finally having fun on his own terms. Still, the tabloids didn't leave him alone. Every rare public appearance sparked speculation. Was he healthy? Was he sober? Was he okay? Photos of him looking thin in 2012 went viral, with headlines declaring that he was on the brink. But once again, the narrative didn't match reality. Culkin later explained that he was fine, simply living his life away from the noise. Unlike the Hollywood machine, which demands constant visibility, Macaulay was comfortable being forgotten. Then, slowly, the world began to see him differently. In the late 2010s, he started opening up in interviews, showing wit, self-awareness, and even humor about his past. He joked about Home Alone and his childhood fame, proving he wasn't bitter, just wiser. Fans who once pitied him now admired him for surviving the pressures that had destroyed so many others. In 2021, Culkin surprised everyone with a major acting comeback in American Horror Story double feature. His performance was dark, edgy, and praised by both fans and critics. For the first time in decades, people weren't talking about his downfall, they were talking about his talent again. It was proof that despite everything, Culkin still had the spark that made him famous in the first place. Beyond acting, Macaulay found stability in his personal life. He began a relationship with actress Brenda Song, best known for The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody. In 2021, the couple welcomed their first child, a son named Dakota. For Macaulay, becoming a father was a full-circle moment. After enduring a childhood marked by chaos, exploitation, and loss, he was now creating the loving, stable family he never had. Today, Macaulay Culkin is no longer chasing Hollywood glory, and maybe that's why he finally found happiness. He lives quietly, often in Paris or Los Angeles, raising his son, enjoying life with Brenda, and choosing projects that interest him rather than ones that promise fame. He has redefined what success means, proving that true redemption isn't about regaining the spotlight, it's about taking control of your own story. In the end, Macaulay Culkin didn't lose it all. Yes, he lost the fame, the fortune, and the Hollywood pedestal that once defined him. But what he gained was far more important: peace, freedom, and a life that finally belongs to him. His journey is no longer just about being the boy from Home Alone. It's about survival, resilience, and the quiet triumph of a man who refused to be broken by the very industry that made him.